Good morning, everybody. This is Tim Braheem filling in for Dave Savage on the weekly Mortgage Coach conference calling series. And I'm so happy to be here with you this morning as I enjoy the morning here in California before it gets blazing hot like it's been over the last several days. I hope everyone's having a productive morning and a great start to your week. And today I am very, very excited about the opportunity to interview a client of mine who has become a very good friend, who is a dynamite loan officer who's going to be full of a lot of value today, I'm certain, as it relates to you as listeners. Let me tell you a little bit about Mike Metz. Mike Metz is the owner-managing director of Sun State Home Loans in Scottsdale, Arizona. He's been a loan originator for a couple of decades now, and has an amazingly consistent production average. Let me give you some numbers to chew on just so you get a perspective on who Mike is from a loan production perspective. In the last 5 years, he's averaged right at $70 million in volume, $70,217,000 in volume, 279 units over that 5-year stretch of time. His average loan amount over that 5-year period is $255,000. His average gross commission over that period of time is $4,022. This is a guy who really knows his numbers. We were together for 1 week in Costa Rica on my strategic business and life planning retreat, and you could ask Mike any set of numbers, and he could pull them up for you immediately. I mean, he really tracks this stuff very closely. He averaged funding 23 deals per month, so that's his 5-year average. Now, taking a look at this year, year-to-date through the end of July, Mike has funded $52 million in production for a total of 232 units. So he's certainly ahead of his 5-year pace, but not astronomically so, by maybe about 125%. His average loan amount is $227,000, so that's dropped a little bit. But check this out, gang. And this is the one that really, and the reason I'm giving you these numbers is because I wanted to zero in on this particular number right here. His average loan amount is $227,000, but his average gross commission per transaction is $4,857, up $835 from the last 5 years. And that comes in a market that most people consider to be highly competitive, very cost-conscious with all the refis, et cetera. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. He's averaging 33 funded loans per month. Mike, thanks for joining us. It is such a pleasure to have you, and I'm really excited about our time together this morning.
Hey, good morning, Tim. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So let's start. Just give everybody a little bit of a snapshot as to how you got started in the business, what it looked like for the first few years. You know, what were some of the mistakes that you made in hindsight? If you're new in the business today, what would you be doing differently to ensure that you get off to a good, fast start?
Oh my gosh. I mean, to give you an idea, Tim, when I started in the business, and this was 1990, I came out to Phoenix, Arizona. I knew nothing about mortgages. I had actually been in commercial banking back in Oklahoma, and the banks were all failing back in the late 80s, and I'd taken a job with a bank in Florida. And I wasn't supposed to start that job in Florida until February of the following year, and this was around November, around Thanksgiving. Had a buddy said, hey, you ought to go out to Arizona. I've got a friend out there. You can play some golf, hang out, and maybe do a few loans. He says the business is real good. So I went out here, met this guy. We were, about the same age, and he's like, yeah, sure, I can use some help. Come on in. So I go in, and it's 2 guys running a little shop, complete, old school mortgage broker. And they say, hey, you can sit at this desk, and we go to lunch at this time, and here, if the calls come in, just say this, this, and this, and do it. Well, they were there for 2 days, and both those guys left for 2 weeks on a vacation. I didn't even know what a 10-year treasury was. I knew nothing. So I was at a company with no formal training, didn't really know what's going on, and quite honestly, they weren't probably the most, that company probably, in hindsight, didn't have the most integrity of all the mortgage brokers that were out there at the time. And so it was sink or swim. But what I did learn that first 30 days that I was there, I made about as much money in 1 month that I could make in a half a year working for the bank. And I thought, wow, this is for real. So I called back my wife, said, honey, there's a change of plans. You know, load the family. We're going to Arizona. At that time, and this is what I remember very vividly in my mind, I ended up in Phoenix, Arizona in a U-Haul trailer with my wife and two young boys with $200 in my pocket. And so, man, I had to start pedaling really, really fast. Daddy needed to make some money. And I just jumped in with that fear that I can still feel it today when I think about it. Man, you got to make some money. So how do I make some money? You better get another deal, and you better get it fast. And I just took off running as fast as I could to try and do another deal, another deal, another deal. And I think, and I remember it vividly, I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew I had to do it because I had to make that money. And I think if everyone would remember back to those days, if you had those days, and most people I meet in the mortgage industry have very humble beginnings. Virtually everyone can tell me a story like that. Remember back to those days on when you had to have it, what you would do to get that next deal. And I still rewind that tape in my mind constantly. And so I got into the business. The least I made, that year I made $120,000 was how much I made. That was the smallest amount I've ever made in my 20-plus year career. And each year it was my goal to make more than the year before and the year before. And you just keep pedaling as fast as you can, learning along the way. And I think a big part of it is, and this is what somebody in the industry's told me along the way, I can't remember who, but you have to be wired for this business, you know. Quite honestly, folks, it's not for everybody. And you'll know it if it's not for you. But if it is for you, there's nothing better. It's like heroin. Well, I've never tried heroin. But
easy, cowboy.
I'm assuming it's like a very addictive drug, because if you get it and you're wired for it, it's exciting. Every day is fun. It's going in. I compare this business to deep sea fishing. Some days you're out there, you're doing everything right, and you don't catch a fish. Other days it's fish on, and you can't throw enough fish in the boat. But if you stay consistent, you stay with your plan, you do what you're doing every day, and you're doing it right, you're going to fill the boat full of fish come the end of the year. So it's fun being in a business like this that I see very competitive. It's me against the world. When I'm out there, I'm trying to beat every originator in Phoenix, Arizona. And if I can't, it really hurts me when I don't. When I lose a deal to somebody else because of fee, service, something, I'm better today at shaking it off than I was. But back in the day, it would wreck me like, God, why didn't that guy go with me? What could I do different? And so I was always trying to learn from people that for some reason or another didn't go with me. And that was always helpful. And I think more helpful, I think that's what a big Todd Duncan deal is, make failure your friend. If something doesn't go your way, figure out why it didn't and make that your friend and learn from it. Folks, you're going to fail. You're going to have bad years. You're going to have bad months. You're going to have realtors that you work with forever that decide they don't want to work with you. And you've got to learn from that. Stay consistent. Stay with your plan and just keep marching forward every day. If you do so, man, this is a great industry to make a lot of money and still have the flexibility of leading a pretty flexible lifestyle.
So many big points that you're making here. I want to highlight a couple of them and then ask you a follow-up question of something that you and I have actually never talked about, but our buddy Mike Smalley told me that he learned from you. So a couple of points that I want to make is the last thing Mike just said right now, folks, is so critical. You have one of two choices when somebody says no to you. One is to take it personally and get pissed off and hang up the phone or walk away from the appointment and figure out all the ways to play victim and blame them and all of that, which frankly isn't going to do you any good. It's going to maybe temporarily make you feel better in that moment. That's about it. Or you have the opportunity to say, okay. And as Mike is highlighting right now, failure can be my friend, or there is a learning opportunity in this. How can I get better in the wake of this no that I just received? and simply ask that realtor, that client, that financial planner, that accountant who just said no to you, if they could please share with you why it is that they've decided to not go with you. And really take that in and learn from it and use that no as an opportunity to get better going forward. That's the first thing I want to point out. The second thing that I want to point out is something that Mike highlighted a little bit earlier in his response, which was when he first got started in the business and he got that first deal in, and he brought the family to Arizona from Oklahoma, and he immediately took the mindset of, I need to go get another deal. The gentleman who I used to work for very early in the business, who was an outstanding loan officer, his name was Jack Lieberman. And Jack was in the Mortgage Originator magazine, $50 million producer club. I'm talking 1992, 1993. And the secret to his success, and I really think there was something very profound in this, was one simple formula, an app a day. That was his sole mission when he woke up every morning is, how am I going to get one application today? Every day, his goal is to get one app, which is 20 deals a month. And if you get 2 in one day, great. But if you really wake up with that mindset of how am I going to get one application today, what am I going to do, who am I going to call, it will go a long way in you having not only the right intention, but putting the right behaviors in place to ensure that you are constantly selling and originating loans, which leads me to my question to you, Mike. Mike Smalley, who's a friend of ours and also a client of mine, mentioned to me about your clicker and how he adopted that. Tell us about the clicker.
So the clicker, and this was, I got this from, I believe it was Casey Cunningham, a coach out in Atlanta, had shown it to me. What it is, it's the old, and I've got it right here, it's your umpire clicker like you'd see that the umpire would have or a track coach would have, and it just has a set of numbers on it. And every day this is setting on my desk, and I rewind it to 0, and I try and make it, used to be 15 meaningful clicks per day. And by that, that's a meaningful conversation regarding mortgages. And it's, if you talk to one guy 3 times, that's only 1 click. But back when I originally started using this, probably about 5, maybe even 8 years ago, if I could do 15 clicks a day, have 15 meaningful conversations, I found out I would get 3 applications. And if I got 3 applications a day, and I do fallout and everything, I could make $1 million a deal, $1 million a year. And I thought, wow, this is stuff that I can understand. 15 clicks gives me 3 apps a day. If I do 3 apps a day, no matter what happens, fallout, whatever with it, I'm going to end up at the end of the year making $1 million. And it was so crystal clear when I was shown this that I just stuck to it. And the same thing you were talking about your mentor, Tim, that's me. 1 app, I mean, with me, I try and get 3 apps a day. And in today's market, it's been much tougher to get 3 apps than it was, say, back in 2003, 2004, when deals were just flying out of the sky, underwriting was a rubber stamp. So we have to amend that. I really need about 20 conversations a day. And as you can see, with 20 conversations a day, it doesn't leave a lot of time to do other things. And that's how you kind of evolve through this business, is as you grow and learn to delegate and everything. Pretty much my time is either spent on my personal time or originating phone calls, or on originating phone calls. My call schedule's booked in 15-minute increments. So every day, like when I get off this call, I'll look at my call schedule, and every 15 minutes, I've probably got a call booked on there of people that I'm going to talk to about trying to get an application. So don't be too aggressive out there when you hear the 1 app a day. Maybe you start out and you're saying, if I can get 2 apps a week, then I'm happy, or I can get 3. But it's the old school, again, it's a Todd Duncan chuck down. You figure out how much income you want to make a year. You figure out how much you're going to make per transaction. That's going to tell you how many transactions you need per year to make your desired goal. Then you take that, you divide it into the number of days you're working per year, and you have a nice daily sample of what you need to do. I'm a flippin' robot. I wake up, I go to work, I look at my schedule, and I do what it says, and I really don't get outside the box. I don't like being in the office if I'm not working, and I've heard Tim and other people talk. I mean, people that go to the office and you get on ESPN and you're looking at Facebook and you're talking to people in the office. What a waste of time. If I'm going to do stuff like that, I'm going to do it outside of the office. When I come in here, it is game day. Every single day, it's game time. I come in with intensity, and I'm ready to go. I don't want to F around all day, you know, wasting time in my office. Life's too short. We've only got so many hours in the day. So I really, if you're going to work as hard as you can, never quit in the hours that you have, and then, and it's not the easy part, Tim's been working with me on this a lot, try and turn it off when you leave the office. And that's when you get to that point, call Tim Braheem, because that's what he's been working on with me for the last year, on trying to get me to slow it down once I walk out of this office and put on my hat to be Mike Metz, normal guy, versus Mike Metz, mortgage originator psycho.
Yeah, you know, the numbers that you just broke down are really important. I just want to really reemphasize that. So what I'm hearing Mike say is that if you first start with the big picture in mind and you chunk it down from there, and you get yourself to, you know, how many units you need to close, how many meaningful conversations you need to have on a weekly and then daily basis, to then subsequently result in the number of transactions you're going to do to hit your number. That's a very, very effective way to do it, and it sheds an entirely different light on the picture of what you do with the office every day. In other words, what I'm trying to say is, let's hypothetically say that you close 25% of all meaningful conversations that you have. You get 25%, 1 out of every 4 of those people to say, yes, I'm going to go forward with you, and they do a loan with you. Okay, and that loan closes. Okay, and let's say that in this formula, you know, to make the $1 million or to make $200,000, let's go with a slightly less aggressive number, that means that you have to close 5 deals in a month. Okay, what that ultimately means is that you need to talk to 20 people in a month, or at least 5 people a week, to be able to get yourself to that number at the conversion ratio that you have. And when you start to break it down into these very practical and tangible numbers, you start to say to yourself when you wake up in the morning, gosh, how am I going to get that one call today that's with a meaningful prospect? So let's transition there, Mike. I mean, let's go back again to kind of the turning point, your turning point in the business. I mean, what was the big aha moment? I mean, you started off great. I mean, you made $120 in the first year in the business. I don't know too many people who have ever done that, including myself. I mean, that's a really, really big year for your first year in the business. But was there a turning point? Was there a critical place in your business career that things shifted and you really took it to the next level?
Yeah, it definitely huge. And I'll tell you one thing, going back to the chuck down, folks, when you're doing your chuck down model, take into account actually really how many days a year you're going to be working. That's where you can sometimes, but you know, figure out how many working days, how much vacation you're going to take, and really nail it down as to how many days I'm going to be working throughout the year. Because if you don't, it'll skew your numbers. Okay, so my big turning point came back in 06 or 07. I had been in this business for 15 years. Again, I'm a mortgage broker. I'm a loan donkey. Nothing fancy about me. I'm just shagging loans out here. And I've been doing it for 15 years at that point, killing myself. My office had no systems. I had myself, 2 processors, and one of the processors' mothers. All we didn't have an intercom on the phone. We had a little bitty 1,000-square-foot office, and all day long we just yelled, just yelling. Where's that file? Where's that? Is that it? I don't know. And just cussing. It was utter chaos for 15 years. I did that. But the money was good. I didn't know different because I was just a broker over here. Well, this is what you do to be successful with it. And it was really killing me, and it was taking its toll on my wife, my family. And about that time in 05, 06, I told my wife, you know what, I've had it. You know, we've made good money. Screw the rats. Let them win the race. I'm ready to get out of the business. And she looked at me like, you know, for one, we'll last married about another 6 months if you're not working. I know you, and you don't need time on your hands. So we got to figure something else to keep you working. And at that time, there was a flyer came through my email, and it was a conference with, at that time, it was Loan Toolbox, Todd Duncan, all the big names except Tim, except Loan Toolbox wasn't at this one, but all the other names back then. And I had never heard of any of these companies. And when I did get their flyers for seminars, I would look at it and go, these guys don't know what they're doing. I'm doing these type of numbers. I know more than they do. I'm not going to give them my money to go to some stupid seminar. That was my mentality. Keep in mind, I was making good money, killing myself working, so what do you usually get out of that? An enormous ego. I had just looking back, it's just make you puke because my life revolved about how much I could make and could I buy a fancier car and this and that. And so if you're leading that lifestyle, don't worry, you're going to crash one way or the other. And so I went to the seminar, and all of a sudden it just kind of connected, and I heard people talking about systems and methods and networking and all that, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to give this a try. So I'm going to sign up for everything, and I'm going to give it 1 year, and if it works, and I'm going to go to all the seminars and everything, then I'm going to stay with it. If it doesn't work, screw it. I'm going to go figure out something else to do. Also about that time, I had had some heart surgery because I was blowing myself up with stress. So my body, I was in a real mode of surrender about that time, and maybe that's why I was able to, it was able to soak in so much better. So I went to the seminar, signed up for everything, and man, I started drinking the punch like nobody's business. I subscribed to everything. I did everything. It was amazing, Tim. The guy I was sitting next to at that conference, and Loan Toolbox wasn't represented, but I was asking him about who's this guy, Todd Duncan, and who's Barry Habib, who's Jim McMahon, what are these guys, where'd they come from? I'd never heard of any of them. And again, this is 2005, 2006. You guys have been around quite a while. And the guy next to me goes, well, yeah, there's another company that competes, and it's called Loan Toolbox, and they're really cool. And I go with them. Loan Toolbox? That's a weird name. What's that like? And he goes, well, check them out. So I subscribed to Loan Toolbox then. If it was out there, I subscribed to it. I bit into it. I started getting systems in place. I hired assistants. I just started doing everything that I was told to do, and all of a sudden the chaos cleared, that little bit of calmness started coming in, and life began. I started listening, having people show me how to do it instead of Mike Metz doing it his way. So in this industry, there are so many tools, there's so many services you can subscribe to out there that will help you guys. Don't do it on your own. I mean, you're crazy. I wasted 15 years. Had I had all the services that I started acquiring in 2006 back 10 years before that, man, I would have made 10 times the money doing it. So reach out. There's so many people in this industry. Networking was another huge change. You know, I have mastermind groups that I'm part of. I have people that Tim said, like Mike Smalley and other people that I can pick up the phone and I can call, hey, how would you handle this? What would do? Don't go at this alone. If you do, you're just hurting yourself. The money you can spend on any of these services, I promise you, I've never subscribed to a service that I didn't get my money out of. And that's not a plug. I mean, I'm telling you right from my heart, that is the honest truth.
So tell us a little bit about your business today and specifically how your team is made up. I think that it's important for people to really hear kind of what the evolution is like for a loan originator. So, you know, you started in the business 20 years ago and you are where you are today, and we'll get into life balance in a little bit, but believe me, folks, Mike takes a lot of time for himself and his family. He lives a very, very balanced life, has about 6 to 8 weeks every year, I think, that he's out of the office on vacation or at his second home in Florida. But how did you set your team up? Like, what is it made up of currently? Kind of take us through the different personnel.
Okay, so I've got a team of 5. So I've got my number one guy is my production manager. and his name's Darren, and Darren is a licensed loan officer. I have him on salary and a small salary, and then he gets paid per file for every file that closes. And what Darren does, we call him the pig farmer. He's in his office, knee-deep in mud boots. He does every single thing that I don't like, don't want to do. Now, you've got to have your production up to a certain level to hire somebody, but as soon as you can hire someone to do this, all of a sudden now you're doing the stuff that you enjoy, not the stuff you don't enjoy, like expired locks, low appraisals, borrowers wanting to know if they can float down their interest rate because they locked at a higher rate. What's this? You know, all those calls that we get that take up so much time, I hired a person to take care of that, and I compensate him well.
Researching loans, right?
Everything. Like yesterday I went in, hey Darren, can we do an FHA streamline on a manufactured home? I don't know those things, but Darren does, and if he doesn't, he gets on the phone immediately, calls a rep, finds out what the story is, and brings it back. He prices my loans. He locks all of my loans. Locking loans is such a time-consuming task. Now, again, you'll know when you're there, guys, on the call like this, and I'm not sure exactly, depending on how much you're making a deal, what that exact number is as far as units per month, but you'll know it when you need it, and it's the scariest thing in the world to hire a guy like that because you think, I can't afford it. And like everybody you've probably heard on all the conference calls, you know, saying, you know, if you don't hire an assistant, you are an assistant. And that's the doggone truth. Your money.
I want you to repeat that again, please. Repeat that one more time.
If you don't hire an assistant, you are an assistant.
Boy, ain't that the truth. And I'll just add real quick, sorry to interrupt, but I just really love what you're saying right now, Mike. The thing is that, you know, when you say, I don't know what the your production needs to be at to be ready to hire that person, it's almost kind of the field of dreams, if you build it, they will come type thing.
Right.
You know, so it's like you almost have to make that leap of faith and trust. And believe me, there's a lot of social proof out there, folks. I mean, not just myself and Mike Metz, but there's dozens and dozens of good loan originators out there that would tell you the same thing, which is that when you do hire somebody to take those low payoff activities off your desk, like researching loans and relocks and renegotiations and all that stuff, then that frees up the time that you need to take your production to the level that you have always dreamed of it being at. Go ahead and continue.
And that's what you do, and then you can start boom. But it's exactly right. You look at it, so you have a guy that can do something like that. You can start out part-time. You know, you can advertise on Craigslist for nothing. You can. There's a lot of networking. The universities, if you're in a town with a university, they love to send people in the finance department out to mortgage companies to work. You can at no charge. You know, I know tons of people that have used that just make constantly have guys helping them that are college interns, and it's a two-way street. Or it's great for the intern to get involved in business, or it's great for you to have someone that can handle some of this stuff. So production manager was the first guy that I hired. Then the second person I hired was my transaction coordinator. And when a transaction coordinator does all the liaison with the realtors, transaction coordinator, unlike Darren being the pig farmer in there with his boots and in the mud, my transaction coordinator is a fairy godmother, and she has nice wings, and she sprinkles fairy dust all over everything. She makes sure everybody is just happy and really warm and fuzzy. And I found a girl that had been, I think it's very important for a transaction coordinator to find someone with a title background that knows the importance of deadlines and the side of the title, because the title side is so important on your purchase side. So Chelsea, my transaction coordinator, handles everything to do with realtors. And in fact, she does most of the talking with the realtors. She'll set me up on my appointments to go out and meet a realtor. But once we meet the realtor and you get to know me a little better, oh God, I would rather walk on hot coals than, you know, spend time with realtors. And I'm sorry, I've done it. I mean, I spent many years of my career doing the MLS tours and all that, and you're a monkey on a chain, and it just kills me. But I know we need, as originators, that's a big part of our business, so I can't slam the door on it. So I got a very nice young lady that can communicate with the realtors for me, and really keep me out of all the jawboning that a lot of people have to do. And that's why I hired her, is because I didn't like spending a lot of time with realtors.
But so you go out and you procure the relationships, but you have her nurture them?
Absolutely. That's it, you know. So, and get a little off track, but again, any transaction you're in, I go after the sell side realtor harder than I do the buy side realtor, because I've already got the buy side realtor. She's working with me. She's got my borrower. It's not going to take too much to win her over, but I'm going to put a big red bullseye on the back of that sell side realtor and just bug the living crap out of them the whole transaction. And then the day that thing funds on time or below, I'm going to come in, ask them how the experience is, and then would you be opposed to doing some more business with me? And that's my line. You know, this deal we closed a day early, John Brown, would you be opposed of us doing some more business? Now what I'm doing when I say would you be opposed, I'm letting the realtor say no, because he wants to say no, but he's really saying yes. And man, once he's, would you be opposed? No, Mike, I wouldn't be opposed to that. Boom. Hook set, I'm reeling like a son of a gun, and all I want to do is get that fish close to the boat. Now I hand the rod off to somebody else, and I'm going to go catch another fish. And that's the real excitement in my business, is when I get that guy to say no when he's really saying yes, and bring him in. If I can get him into the boat, or if I can get that realtor to say yes and I can get another deal, I'm going to get at least 5 more deals out of him. And if I do a good job, I've got him for life. And so that's the way I look at it. The sell side realtor is so important in the transaction. Same way with any of the borrowers you're talking for, asking for the referral. One of the things I do, and I'm getting a little off track here, about a couple, 3 years ago, somebody gave me the idea of not calling myself a loan officer, because I hated that kind. I just didn't like loan officer. You know, you guys know it as a bad, it's like used car salesman. Nobody likes loan officer. And they came up and said, you know, Mike, you're a business development manager. Business development manager. What you're doing is trying to go out and develop business, either individually, one-on-one with a borrower, or through groups and companies and realtor groups. Business development manager. So really all I need to do is think about developing business. I don't need to gear down on guidelines and extending lots and things like that. And once I started thinking of myself as a business development manager, life became a lot easier. And my job is to sell. I have a good product, I think better than anybody in this town. So why does this person not want to work with me? I'm going to sell the crap out of my product to this guy because I've got a good product. You have to believe in what you're selling. #1 rule of sales. And I believe in what I'm selling, so why would I not want to sell it? And it becomes much easier when you take that mindset with it.
Let's segue for just a quick second here, because you just said something, you have to believe in what you're selling. And I'm going to share with the listeners a very brief story of something that I experienced, oh gosh, 15 years ago maybe. Late 1990s, I was on the driving range in Maui at a Todd Duncan event. I was hitting golf balls with Stephen Marshall. And long story short, Stephen was charging, and back then pricing was of course different than it is today, where you don't have set pricing, but Stephen was charging and making, I should say, about an extra 30 basis points more than I was on average. And we were doing very similar production. We're both in competitive markets, him in Seattle, me in Los Angeles. And he managed to convince me to try quoting every one of my clients an extra 1/8 higher in the rate and making, therefore, an extra 25 to 40 basis points per deal to make up that delta between him and I. And it really flew directly in the face of my own issues of self-worth. And I think that this is a really important point that that we really take a look at, which is pricing, because you're selling yourself, is directly correlated to how you feel about yourself. So if you don't feel like you're really good, like Mike just stated, if you don't feel like you have a great product, you're going to tend to price lower in accordance with the value that you believe and perceive that you bring to the relationship. Now, I realize that the pricing model has changed. However, when we were at the Costa Rica retreat in late February, early March, Michael Shane, who I interviewed about 2 months ago in this same conference calling series, who's a dynamite loan originator in Seattle. We were having a discussion, Mike Metz and I, with Mike Shane about the average basis points that he was making per loan. And at the time, I believe he was making 125 across the board. That was his set pricing with all of his lenders. And Mike and I managed to convince him that he was charging too little, and that the value that he was bringing was worth more, and that he should try changing his fee structure with his lenders to 150 and just see what happens. He could always go back after, you know, whatever that time frame is, 3 months, 4 months, whatever it is. And I'm happy to report, Mike Metz and I were just talking offline before we got on the call, that, you know, that Michael Shane had increased from 125 to 150. He hasn't seen a drop of any kind in his business since doing so. And when you think about making an extra 25 bips on all of your loan pipeline, and when you're doing big volume, it's even more profound. It's a meaningful, life-changing event. And you're charging 200 basis points per loan.
Yeah,
that probably seems like an outlandish number to some of the people listening. And I'm sure they have all the excuses in the world about how competitive their market is and how yours isn't. I'd like you to comment on this subject matter, because I think you walked right into it with, you know, the issue of having to believe in yourself in sales.
Yeah, and that's it's interesting because Stephen Marshall, same thing again. Nothing I do is original. There's not an original bone in my body, folks. I'm like that old game Operation. You know, the guy laying on the table, and you put a funny bone here and something there. That's me. I mean, there is, you know, Greg Frost, Tim Braheem, Todd Duncan, Barry Habib, Sue Woodard. I can go on and on and on of all the people that have made me what I am. And I don't want to be any one person. I want to be a combination of all these people, you know, and they all have such great wisdom and insight to share, and that's what I think. But Stephen Marshall, same thing, was talking to me like, hey, Mike, do you want to make more? Increase loan, get bigger loan amounts and charge more money, and you're guaranteed to make more money. And it's so hard to do. Believe me, folks, I can remember doing it. I just pushed my prices up on my FHA streamlines recently. I was real scared. I didn't have a single bit of fallout. Nobody's even blinking an eye. So you can do, you can definitely do that as far as moving, you know, moving up your prices and what you're thinking about. I'm sorry, Tim, I got off track there. What did you ask me again?
Well, specifically, what I was wanting you to comment on was where you found the intestinal fortitude to charge 200 basis points per loan.
Well, that's it. And remember, I'm a broker, so everybody can say, well, my market's different, it's competitive. Folks, I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. It has been the worst market in the nation for 5 years. I think we had, I don't know, 80% of the people leave. I'm a mortgage broker. I'm the guy that's not supposed to be alive today. You know, that I actually old school broker loans with it. Now, I've been a banker, I'm licensed as a banker, but I don't want to take the risk of buybacks at this point in my career, so I broker everything with it. When I do get 200 basis points, that is, unlike some of the people on the call that are working for a company and then you have your split and everything, that's my gross commission, and then I pay my team and my overhead and everything out of that. And at 200 basis points, I can compete, I can stay underneath the big banks. So what do I do for pricing? We do price surveys. We call Wells Fargo, B of A, retail side. All the time we go online, we see where they're priced, and we just come in a little bit below it, and then we make that known. Hey, you know what? I'm this much cheaper than the big bank. I'm this much less. I do sell rate quite a bit, and at the 200 basis points that I'm making, I can still make that money and still be equal or below the competition. I am no way the high guy in town with it, and I think there's an even balance there depending on the companies you're working with and what you're able to make with them. But that's why I enjoy being a broker, an independent broker. I can set my own prices. I can do what I want with it. With the HARP loans, and because there's like 3 times as much work in a HARP loan than a regular loan, I'm making 2.5 on all the HARPs. On the FHA streamlines, because our loan amounts are lower, we make 2.5 on those also.
Do you get a lot of price objection, though?
No. I don't. If I do, I don't know about it because we tell them, and I don't give them a lot of time to give me the objection because basically I quote, we come in, they tell me I have the script. I can do a loan application sitting in my office, looking out the window with binoculars at a bird in a tree, and go through my script on a loan app. It's so embedded in my brain. I say the same thing over and over again 20 to 25 times a day. And so basically right after I tell them the rate, this is the closing cost. If it's a refi, here's your break even. I just need a few more things on this application, and I can get you approved probably within 48 hours. And I don't even really give them a chance to say no. I'm going so fast. And we've had people, and I guess, I don't know, it can be looked at good or bad, but we call them back and they tell they're approved, and they say, well, I didn't even realize I applied. Yeah, well, I've got a full application from them. And so always when there's a real art of the application and what questions you ask them. I always compliment the borrower 3 times during the application. Pat yourself on the back. Always when we get to 401k, how much your 401k, 100,000, man, guy, pat yourself on the back. I look at thousands of applications a year. Not a lot of people can say that. They got an 800 FICO. Wow, you really should be proud. Compliment that borrower sincerely, and I am sincere when I say it, and that will really build that trust with the borrower. So now the rate, the fees, everything's not quite as important. This guy knows Mike. Mike's a good old boy. Yeah, I think I want to do business. And I've had umpteen people tell me, well, yeah, I was going to shop around. I talked to another guy, but you sound like a pretty good guy. I think I'm just going to go with you. And that's it. You have one chance, folks. It's like you're a runway model. I don't want to compare the industry to, and I'm not going to say that, but it's you have one chance on the phone to sell yourself. You have to use tonality. You have to use humor, a little bit of maybe a slightest tone of sexuality in there, and just things in there to build that conversation so this person feels like they know you through the phone. As you can tell, I do most of my applications over the phone. I see, and this is against industry standards, I see less than 5% of my borrowers, and that's a career average, not just recently. Very seldom will I meet a borrower unless I happen to bump into him in the lobby, something like that. Maybe that doesn't work for everybody. Maybe that's against some coaching strategies, but for me it works due to my personality. I think I can sell somebody on the phone, and when I say sell, I use that as a sales transaction, not trying to pull something over somebody's eyes. I can sell better over the phone than I can in person. In person, I talk too much. I spend too much time. I'll spend 45 minutes to an hour with a borrower, where my average application takes 12.5 minutes. So it's just a time, money thing so that I can get my apps and then get the heck out of here.
So I'm going to give you a couple of quick takeaways from that just to summarize that I heard. Number one is there's a great degree of psychology being used here. Not only is the realtor being asked the question if they would be opposed to working in the future, which is very much a psychological kind of spin on the typical question of would you be willing to refer business to me? So he's using kind of almost a double negative on them, yeah, on the realtor. Mm-hmm. When the realtor answers the question no, they're really saying yes. But also psychologically with the 3 compliments. I mean, I think that the law of reciprocity really kind of kicks in there. If you can sincerely compliment your customer or your referral source 3 times in every conversation, they're going to feel really good about themselves, they're going to feel really good about you, and they're going to want to reciprocate by giving you their business. The third thing that I really heard in all of that that I think is very, very important is that Mike is going with the assumed close. So he's going into the entire conversation under the premise and assumption that this person is going to want to work with him because he's damn good at what he does. He's not going into the conversation hoping and praying that this person says yes to him. He's actually using some of his own reverse psychology on himself, which is coming into it with the mindset, once again, that this person is going to go with me, and I'm going to make them tell me they don't want to go with me, rather than ask them whether or not they would be willing to go with me. And I think that's a really, really critical piece. So take a look at your, one other thing that's really big, actually, back to the clicker, with the 20 conversations a day, 20 meaningful conversations a day strategy. And even if it's, in your case, you might be saying, geez, that sounds overwhelming. I don't know how I talk to 20 people. Even if it's 5 meaningful conversations a day, there's something else very important that's happening in all of that. It's that you're getting a lot of practice. The more people that you talk to, the more no's you hear, especially if you follow them up with, as we talked about earlier, with why did you say no so I can learn from it, the better you're going to get. The more refined your scripting and presentation is going to get, the more polished, the more confident, the more slick and smooth it's going to become, and the more attractive you're going to ultimately be through all of that practice over and over. Like he said, looking at the bird in the tree through his binoculars, he can still state the script. So
I use the same analogy as what I saw with comedians. And I read a deal on Larry the Cable Guy. And we all know Larry, and Larry just looks like a good old boy guy. Larry rehearses hours, untold hours, to come off with that presentation. He makes it look so easy and smooth, but there's millions of hours, and the way that he ties in the jokes and the setups, it's so technical. And when I started, in essence, almost studying comedians on how they deliver and how they make it look so easy in their mannerisms, it relates so closely to our business. I don't want to say we're actors, really, but we are on stage. Our job is to sell. We do have to be aggressive. So how can I do that and still look like a good old boy? So do kind of watch comedians and see. It's really helped me a lot in studying the comedians.
That's a great point, and I think that there's great validity to the reference point of actors, because I do think that to some extent, we are, like you said, we're, the camera's rolling,
yeah.
And we've got an opportunity to either win the audition or not, because that's really what you're doing, is auditioning for the right to get the job when you're talking to a client or a referral partner. We have about 10 minutes, and then I want to open it up to a few questions at the very end. So let's try to move through this, but I think this is a really important piece. One of the things, it's like, if I think, as your coach, and I think, I know obviously an awful lot about your business from having worked with you over the last 7 or 8 months. If somebody said to me, what does Mike Metz do extraordinarily well in his business? I think the thing that's most impressive to me is how you use the media to your advantage. And I'd like you to just kind of give everybody a little bit of a flavor of what you do, and then I'll certainly fill in some blanks, because maybe there'll be some things that you're a little bit shy about bragging about yourself. But tell us a little bit about your usage of the media.
Well, with the media, I've done radio for about 10 years now. I've done radio, and I did it because, again, I didn't know what I was doing, but I listened to a particular radio station every day back in the day when I was driving around cold calling on Realtors, and I thought, maybe that would be good to do some advertising, and I did it. I started doing a 1-hour radio show. I'm not doing it right now, but I do quite a bit of radio advertising, consumer direct. It's straight deal. I spend, and I know it's a big number to a lot of people, but I spend about $4,000 a month on radio advertising. But when you think about it, if we go back to the start of the conversation, my average check's $49. So I hate to think of things like in terms of just one more loan. Remember, we used to always like, God, I'll buy a Mercedes. It's only 2 closings, and I'll buy a house. So I don't like to think in the mindset of per closing. But I get 1 or 2 deals a month. It pays for my radio, and I get far more deals per month off radio, especially since I've been in it for 10 years. And so if you were thinking about radio, let me know. I would be glad to tell you what I know about it. As long as you're not in the Phoenix market, I am very competitive, but outside of here, I would be glad to tell you. And then recently, I've been able to get on TV quite a bit, mostly on news stations and morning, the morning shows like that. And what I did is I go to the news station with a good story. Like, hey, you know what, the heart program's coming up, it's going to save people this amount of money. And what you have to remember is reporters, that's their job. They got to come up with ideas, they got to write it. So if I present an idea to a reporter, I'm doing their job for them. And if I do it, and it's nothing about Mike Metz or Sun State Home Loans, it's all about the deal. And this applies to newspaper also. Then all of a sudden you find the newspapers and the TV stations calling you to ask your opinion on something. What do you think? Or like I had recently, hey, Mike, you have any ideas for a good story? We could really use something on the morning show. And you can do this by, I mean, what I always do, anytime I see something that I like on a morning show, in the newspaper, most of these writers, people on the show all have Facebook pages. I like their page. I make a comment to them. Again, I compliment them on the good job that they're doing. Consequently, and again, I'm sincere, you know, Mike's a pretty good old boy. This guy, and sometimes I'll give him a little bit of an angle. Like, hey, that's a great article you did, but here's also something else that I'm aware of that maybe you didn't know. And I'm just trying to build that rapport, and I have that now with a couple of radio stations, with the head of the business section in the newspaper, and quite a few of the radio stations. And it's just something over time you can do, anybody can do, and I think this is actually a Sue Woodard concept. Again, folks, everything I've told you on this call, not one single thing is original to Mike Metz Body. This is, I know Sue Woodward, I think, was the one that had the idea about media. She, remember, I think it was you, Tim, Lone Toolbox had a media consultant, Kelly Guest, and I hired her, and she taught me how to get in the media and stuff like that. Again, I didn't go at it on my own, cutting it. I figured, okay, if I want to get in the media, what do I do? Found out who was good that could coach me, and I hired a media coach. And it was some of the best money I ever spent with it. So,
and how much did somebody like that cost, and what is it? I know that there's people listening that have probably at least kicked around in their mind before, maybe I ought to try to get my own. You know, there's the Real Estate Radio Network as an example that I'm sure many people know about, that Ron Quintero runs. And I'm sure that many of you have considered this before, and Mike has taken his own unique approach to it. You know, he's just kind of gone out and developed the relationships with, you know, and to give you an idea, I mean, I've watched many of these clips before, because Mike's been doing in the Phoenix Scottsdale area. Mike is the expert on, you know, on FHA, Streamline, and HARP refinance loans. He's been on CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox. He's been on all those different stations over the last, you know, 6-9 months on the morning shows, etc. And that's not something that he has to pay for. That's something that he's been invited to come on several occasions to speak for, you know, 3 to 5 minutes on television, which is extremely powerful. And on your ROI piece, I mean, there's a way to measure it in terms of the direct loans that you get from it that you know about. But then there's the real big number is the indirect amount of business that you get, just the name recognition, the real estate agents that see you, and all of a sudden you have credibility, the clients who were considering somebody else versus you and decide that they're going to go with you instead, and you don't even know about it. I mean, the list goes on and on. So tell us, get a little bit more specific. How did you get on TV? How did that media person help you? What are maybe 2 or 3 important tips that you can share that are critical to approaching, you know, your local media outlets and getting them to be open to working with you?
Well, a great question, Tim, and the word you're looking for is implied credibility. That's what Kelly Guest had taught me, that what I want to do is when I'm on a station, my biggest return is the implied credibility, because there's so few people in our business that have made it to TV. Don't have to be brilliant, you don't have anything, but as long as you're there, to the average borrower, that's going to give you implied credibility, and that's priceless. Number 2, don't go on there at all selling yourself, me. It's about the customer. What can I give the customer that's good, the listener, the viewer, that's good, solid content, you know? And that's what Kelly had taught me. I don't want to get on my radio show and talk about interest rates and this and that. I want to talk to that mom in the minivan driving around that's listening. So what are things that are important to her? Her credit report. And could I maybe give her a free credit report, and I'll help her look over her credit report. The Talk About HARP was such a great program to talk about in Phoenix, because we had, I think we led the nation in underwater homes. So you find a topic that meets everyone. Most people don't understand, nor do they give a flip about mortgage and the details of DTI and LTV, all that stuff. Stay away from that. You want to talk to the masses. As far as how do I get on TV or radio, a lot of it is, again, going directly to Well, first, networking. Anybody that you can think that you know of that's involved in TV or radio, try and use that third-person recommendation. It's something that was taught long ago. Never go straight into a meeting. Find somebody that knows somebody. Use that, hey, you know, Tim Braheem recommended that I give you a call. Or I know you know Tim, and that I always use that, and I find a way to find that in any of the introductions that I have. If you want to spend a little bit more money, and I've done this before, and as well as my buddies have done it also, you can hire a PR consultant. They'll usually charge you around $3,000 a month, and they will try and get you in all the media. They'll get you on TV. They'll do all of that.
So I've done it. They'll get you the actual gigs.
They'll get you the actual gig. I've done that before when I didn't have the time to do it myself, and it worked out very well. You can do the same thing yourself, or maybe I would recommend you go with a media consultant and then kind of see how they do it, and then, you know, do a 3-month contract, and then at the end of 3 months start doing it on your own. I know quite a few guys that have done that. That deal about contacting the editor or the person that wrote the news article in the paper, the reporter that did the reporting, the producer of the morning show, very important, because these morning shows have producers. Figure out who it is and just send them an email introducing yourself, and here's a neat idea. Go through your database, pull up anybody that you've ever financed with any type of media, any of the TV stations, anything like that. Use that as your third person to go to. So who do I know that knows someone that I need to know that's at the TV station or at the radio station or at the newspaper? And I bet
Mike, one thing that just came to mind, I'm wondering if you've ever done this before, but I would think it would be very impactful, is if you're on LinkedIn, you could just send out a message to all of your contacts saying, I'm looking for somebody who may know, could make a warm introduction on my behalf to someone at a local media outlet. I mean, that's a great way to just reach out to everybody.
I go in and I do the same thing with Facebook, even though I'm not a Facebook guy. I think I'm known as a creeper. All I do is look around, don't put anything. But I use it because all of these television anchors and morning show people and everybody has a Facebook page. I like them. I make little comments. It's a way to start. Just their door's slammed shut, locked. You're just trying to crack that door open just to see a little bit of light. Hey, it's me. Can I come in just a second? And just start pushing that door open ever so lightly. LinkedIn, Facebook, those type of things are a great way to at least get them to unlock the door, not necessarily open it, but you're just trying to open that door. Hey, I'm not mean. Everything's fine. Here I come in. And then pretty soon you're in the room and you're the best friend and you got a deal, and it's priceless.
We are at the 1 hour mark of this call, which is technically how long it's supposed to be. But if you have a free few minutes, Mike,
sure,
I certainly do. I'd love to have Jacob open it up to any questions that anybody might have for Mike Metz, or myself, of course. But I think Mike's definitely the guy you want to be asking. It's a great opportunity. So, Jacob, are you able to field questions for us?
Sure thing, absolutely. All right. So, Maureen's question, who all do you call other than previous customers, realtors, financial planners, and Sphere? What does a picture of your schedule look like in the office? And do you call contacts you meet in networking situations to see if they know someone you can call? Trying to get an idea of the complete list of people you call.
Well, that's right. I think, Maureen, great question. The first part of it, that is who previous customers, realtors, financial planners, that's about it. I get enough leads out of that. You can make enough leads out of just your, well, depending where you are in the business, but going back through your database, your previous customers. Any type of networking situation, always good to contact them. My day is set up very rigid, and I'd be glad to share my calendar with anybody, but I come in and I'm a huge time blocker. I mean, I come in and I do my task in the morning. I have my team meeting every single day. We didn't talk about it, but it's imperative that we meet every single day to go over my pipeline. After that, I go into phone calls for 2 hours. Then after that, I leave and go to yoga for 2 hours. And then I come back and I'm in phone calls usually for about another 2.5 hours. And that's it. Every single day, rinse, lather, repeat. rinse, lather, repeat. Now, things move into my schedule to change it around, but it's my sales calls are in red. They're blocked in 15-minute increments, and when I'm on my red sales time, many times I've got my door shut because it's game time. This is how Daddy makes the money. This is where it's really important, and you've just got to get in that mindset with it. But I think as far as the people that I reach out to, and then of course, again, with me doing radio, I do get calls in from the radio also that I can mine those calls. Through my website, we get leads. I do market my website heavily to drive business to the website. As you find in today's time, many people don't want to call, but they love to email. So try and market your website if you have one. If you don't, you definitely need to have an interactive website.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Julia's question, could Mike do a mock-up, take a loan app over the phone session so we can learn his script?
Well, I do. Interesting. It's old Greg Frost. I have the $1 Million Pencil. I handwrite all my applications. I do take 95% of my applications. I did try the thing where I would hand it off, but I can almost take it faster than handing it off. And so the question comes today, you know, I have a scheduled time. With my scheduled time for the appointment, one thing is I never take inbound calls. Now the production has to move up a little bit to have, I don't want to call it the luxury, but anybody calls in, hey, I'm interested in rates, you know, I need to talk to a loan officer. My front office might chase the front. Okay, let me get a little information about you. They get all the loan details with it. Then they put the borrower or the caller on hold, come back, well, it looks like Mike's on a phone call. Let me schedule you on his calendar. So I never take inbound calls. I only take outbound calls because this way it lets my my receptionist research that call for me. If it's a previous app, pull the old application, pull the values, price the loan. So kind of like the old, I forget who used to run their office like a doctor, but it's the same idea of that when I make my call at 2 o'clock today to Jim Smith, I've got all of his paperwork right in front of me so that I know what's going on. The conversation goes, hey, Jim, looks like you called in for, you say, hey, Jim, how you doing? Pretty good, Mike. How about you? Couldn't be better. And then that's it. Just couldn't be better, and then that's it. Then we go right into, well, it looks like you called in about refinancing 8765 East Bell Road. Tell me a little bit about what you want to do. Okay, Mike. And then he goes in and starts telling his story. I button my lips. I think it's been scientifically proven that you can out-talk. The more you talk, the less chance you're going to have of getting the application. And I don't know who along the way told me that, but I saw it at a seminar. The more you talk, the less chance you have it. I've got him at hello. This guy's scheduled an appointment to talk to me. All I got to do is not screw it up, you know. And so tell me a little bit about what you want to do. He starts talking. I'm randomly writing on the application. He's telling me, well, I want to refinance my house, and how long you own that house? And he goes, okay, yeah, keep on. Who's your mortgage with? Okay, yeah, I get that. And he keeps telling the story, and I'm asking type of questions, you know, like and I'm just asking little questions, but what I'm doing is filling out the loan application, yeah. And so all the way through, so then he gets to tell me once in a while, I say, okay, then, and this was at Barry Habib, based on what you've told me, here's what I would recommend. I say it every single time. Based on what you've told me, here's what I would recommend. Now, I've confirmed with them that I'm listening and that I'm an expert and I'm going to make a recommendation, much like a doctor. You know, and I'd heard the thing in a seminar. You go in the doctor's office, you got a broken arm, you go in the doctor, and you would like him to say, based on what I see, here's what I recommend. Not like, well, I don't know. You could do a 30 or you could do a 50. I don't know, Mike. Your arm might be broke. It might not. Let me check. I'll call you back. You know, you don't want that. You want boom, boom, boom. Be in charge of this call. And so based on what you told me, here's what I recommend. I usually give them 2 options, with the second option being the option that I think is the best for them. So yeah, well, based on what you've told me, we could do a 15-year at 2 7/8, but I don't think, based on what you said, if the kid's going to college, you want the payment shock. So I'm going to recommend the 30-year at 3.5 today. Your closing costs are $1,775. Looks like you're going to break even in 23 months, which is very advisable. So let me just get a couple of more items on this application. I can run it through at no obligation and get you approved probably within 24 hours. If you want to lock in your rate right now, which I recommend doing, I would need a Visa card for the appraisal, Visa or MasterCard. It's $460, and it is deducted from the closing cost. If we do that, I'll lock in your rate for 45 days right now. Then I go dead silence. Awkward silence is fine, folks. You don't, when you get into awkward silence, the average LO wants to talk because it makes you nervous. Many LOs talk too much because they don't know what they're saying, you know. Awkward silence is fine. Be quiet. And then it's fun when you're in maybe an adversarial conversation and you get that awkward silence that goes on for, we have a little running joke around here, who has had the longest awkward silence, you know. Darren had one for like 2.5 minutes. And then the guy goes, are you still there? Yes, I'm here. So based on what you've said, so don't be scared of silence with it. Then they come in and I say, okay, I'm trying to, you know, hook them right now. And they say, well, you know what, Mike, hold off. I think I need to talk to my wife. We all hear that, okay? So immediately, well, John, is there anything that I haven't explained or that you don't understand? No, you've done a great job explaining it. Okay, so basically it's just, you just need the boss to say it makes sense, right? Okay, yeah, okay, well, good. Well, then you talk to her this evening. How about, looks like I'll give you a call back at 11:15 tomorrow. How's that work? Well, I don't know, no, I'll call you back. Well, sometimes it's very busy. Why don't we do this? I'll set it at 11:15. If you're not there, that's fine, but I'm going to go ahead and book it down on the calendar so we don't lose track, and I secure your line, your place in line with the refinances. Right now, there is a capacity issue with all the refinances going on, and I didn't want you to wait around a couple days and lose your place in line. Now I've created a sense of urgency. Even though I might not have originated a loan that day, I want this guy to think I'm holding his place in line because everything's so busy right now, I don't want him to fall off the conveyor belt. In about a third of them, I'll get them to go ahead and commit after that, so I've picked up 1 out of 3. The other 2, I'll schedule on my calendar. Out of that, I'll get maybe 1 out of 5. We'll pick up the phone when I call back. But at least now, through that extra effort, I've picked up a couple of more deals, you know. And that's how it is, just the old thing. Never quit, never give up. Don't be frightened to be aggressive in this business.
All right. Got one from Kurt here.
One real quick footnote.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
One real quick footnote. Those of you that get my business and life tips that I send out to my client database, and if you don't get them and you'd like to get them once a month, just go ahead and you know, send out an invitation to me on LinkedIn, and I'll connect with you, and then you'll be put into the group. But in this most recent one that we sent out, I was talking about how the art of listening, and I think Mike just really described that very well. I mean, the fact is this is a psychological fact, something that I studied in great detail in school, is that, you know, if you want people to like you, know this, that what people like more than anything is being heard. People love to be heard. Every one of us, all of us on this call, we love nothing more than knowing that we're being heard by another human being. So what Mike has just so beautifully described in his scripting is that while he's doing that application process and he's sneaking in a question here and there, kind of under the radar in a stealth-like way, the simple fact is that that person is getting to tell their story and they're feeling heard. And what the result of that is I like Mike. He's a good old boy. And that's really one of the huge secrets of anything that you've said on this call today. Go ahead, Jacob, with the next question.
Let me add one quick thing, a thing that I've written down right on my desk right here. Think fast, talk slow. Think fast, talk slow. That's real important because we can say, think real fast. Your mind's buzzing, but you're talking real slow. And secondly, tonality is so important. One of the things I've written down right here in my list that I always look at every day is tonality. So if I'm talking to an engineer, I'm going to take my voice down really quiet. If I'm talking to a redneck from Oklahoma, I'm going to be yelling and what the F and da-da-da. And figure out in that conversation the tonality of your borrower, your client, and match that tonality, and it will make them much more comfortable with you.
Beautiful.
All right. Here's one from Kurt. What is your view of the future of being a mortgage broker? It appears that the major banks are behind the effort to push mortgage brokers out of the industry.
I could care a less on what the future holds, what the industry says. I think all that stuff is great if you want to buy into it, but I can't control the industry. So I've never, HVCC was one of the best things that ever happened to me. I don't have to fiddle with appraisals right now. The new good faith estimates were so confusing. It's awesome. It's the borrowers want to listen to my advice instead of trying to read it. Everything that's happened in the industry that was, oh my God, the sky's falling, has worked out to be for the best. If the day comes that there's no longer a designation for a mortgage broker, my shop's set up as plug and play. I could easily go through, and I've talked to many companies around the country, so I've explored it, that I could probably be up and going with a national firm, as a net branch or as a branch of theirs in 30 days. So I've prepared for it, but I absolutely refuse, and I get angry when people, not angry at these questions, but get so worried about, well, what if rates go to 12, and what if the market falls down, and what if the mortgage broker's not around, and what if? What the F if? Forget it, folks. Stay in the present. Stay in the present. When you start thinking about where are rates going and what's going to happen, you're just bringing all this negative energy into your brain. And if you look back over your career, could you have controlled any of that? No. It's out of your control. So I look at things. What's in Mike Metz's control? My disciplines, my consistency, my tonality, my attitude. What's out of my control? What the industry's doing, what interest rates are doing, what values on homes in Phoenix, Arizona are doing, what the HVCC, what compliance. I can't control that, so I really don't give a flip about any of that stuff. And it served me well. Some people could say, well, yeah, you got to be careful. You've got to plan. I plan, but I plan, I don't dwell on it, I don't think about it. So my plan is I'm set up to plug and play with a company if need be, but I hope the day never comes. I love being just an independent little guy.
I'll take one more question as we're kind of winding down here. Go ahead, Jacob.
Okay, this one's from Rick Cardinelli. If you're working with realtors, how can Mike set clear expectations with third-party underwriters?
Easy. I have, right here the perfect loan process in my binder, and if you don't have a binder when you go out to meet with realtors, you're one step behind the competition, because I do have a binder, and in that is a perfect loan process that has 87 steps in it, and I show it to the new realtor. Like, by the way, does your current lender have a perfect loan process that we go through every step on every deal like this? Well, no, I don't think so. Well, I do, and so I show them the process. I do know my lenders' underwriting turn times and expectations, and they're very manageable. I mean, I hook up with the lenders that can get the deal done, that I don't have to wait 30 or 45 days for underwriting. I can get 48-hour approvals, 24-hour conditions. I can compete with any big lender in the nation on my turn times and conditions. I do sell 80% of my conforming production to Provident. Many people won't work with Provident because they're so tough. Provident made me a better lender. They're like the Marines. They don't hold your hand. You know it. You understand it. Get in line, and if you do it, they perform. And so I don't have any problems with that. Just be careful managing your expectations. The last thing you want to do is walk into a realtor's office, say, yeah, I can do that. You're not sure if you can. You find out you can't. Now you're just another mortgage guy that came through there and promised the sky, and it didn't come through. And I'm just brutally, it takes time, it takes maturity to understand saying, no, I can't do that, or unfortunately I can't do that, but here's what I can do really, really good. And you build your strengths, stay away from your weakness.
So just to summarize, Mike, or to ask you a question, even in today's market, you're still experiencing somewhere in the neighborhood of 48-hour turn time in underwriting and in docs?
Yeah, I can easily do a 30-day close of escrow. No problem, not even a sweat with it. I mean, it's on a good borrower, on a good deal. If I see that this borrower's got a low credit score, maybe it's got MI on it, maybe it was a flip, you know, you really want to go in, and we have a questionnaire that we send to both realtors, the condition of the property, all the things that come up in today's time, so that I can make a decision as a leader on, okay, based on what I know on this file, here's what I can promise. Plain vanilla deal, I can close it in 30 days. If I maybe have a house that's got some, maybe going to need a few repairs, I might need 45, I might need 60. If I got a borrower with a lower credit score, he's had some collections, maybe I need it. But what I do is I tell that realtor straight up, here's what I can do, here's what I can't do. We do a timeline on every single purchase. And if you're not doing it, I highly recommend it. Take it from the day it comes in, know your different underwriting times, allow for appraisal times, allow a little extra time, look for, you know, holidays, vacations, so that you have a timeline on every single file. And as long as you stay on that timeline, which is easy to do on a daily basis, you're not going to be rushed at the end of the transaction. The most important part of your purchase transaction is that first 7 days. That's where you lose time usually, just lollygagging around and waiting for stuff in. Once you're on board with us, I'm calling you 3 times a day to get your stuff in because I need it by this date. We send out letters to the realtors. If we don't have this by this date, we will jeopardize the close of escrow date. And we send that early on, so if we get to the end of the deal and we're running late, we politely make reference back. I know we informed you 3 weeks ago, and Joe Smith didn't get his bank statements in for 2 weeks because he was in the Bahamas, so I'm doing my best, but unfortunately this is the best I can do. And everybody understands that. They're big folks. You know, people are very understanding. People don't like to be lied to. People can, I can tell you this, they know it when they're hearing a lie. And so I used to, early in the day, I'd tell them whatever they wanted. Man, folks, that is not the way to do business, I can tell you. Be honest up front. It'll go a lot further than trying to sugarcoat it.
Mike, thank you so much for your graciousness and the value that you've brought in your time. I know how valuable it is with as busy as you are. It was such a pleasure to interview you today. I'm proud of you, man. There's one compliment. I got to get 2 more in before we're done with the call. And I'm taking notes myself over here. No, really, I really am proud of you. You know that. I tell you that all the time in our coaching sessions. You're quite a guy, quite a businessman, and an even better person.
Well, thank you, Tim. And for the listeners, if you don't realize, this is an interesting story because I signed up with Tim because, one, I wanted to be around a guy that had been successful in the business and thought, well, maybe a little bit rubbed off. I'd always liked Tim's public speaking, and so I'll have Tim, you know, teach me about public speaking. I can kind of rub around a little guy and see what he's like as far as leadership and stuff. And from our very first call, we've never talked about business. It is crazy. Our coaching calls took a life turn, and I mean, someday I'll talk to Tim about speaking and business, but if you're having, what I found out, and I didn't know it, was the thing that was holding me back was just maybe really working life to its most. And that's what it's so, I want to thank you, Tim, for just really helping me. People tell me they see a change in me. I know you've changed, Tim, because I didn't know you 3 and 4 years ago, but I've heard even Dave Savage and everybody said, man, Tim, you're a completely different guy. So if you're thinking about coaching or anything, call me about Tim, and I will tell you everything about it, folks. It has helped me so much. I still fight the fight. I have shitty days every now and then, but man, I don't have near as many of them now that Tim's been around to kind of guide me through all this.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's I look forward to every call we have. Believe me. So it's really an honor to coach you. I want to say thank you to Dave Savage and Mortgage Coach for, and to you, Jacob, for facilitating this call and creating this space for all of us to get together and to learn from Mike Metz today. I want to thank everybody that has joined us on the call today, and written in your questions. I think there were some excellent questions that were being asked at the end. And I just want to wish everyone a really beautiful week and just say thank you again for your time. And until next time, I'm sure you'll be hearing from Dave next Tuesday. You'll welcome him back, and I'm sure you'll hear from me again sometime in the future. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks, Tim and Mike. Everybody, this call is recorded, so it will be available in our coaching call archive. If you'd like to have a link to that archive, please send us an email over at support@mortgagecoach.com. Have a great day, guys. Thank you.
Hey, Jacob, you still there? Hello?
I'm here.
Mike, you're there?
Yeah.
Jacob, you still there, buddy?
Yes, sir. I'm here, Tim.
Hey, can you